Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's thewfia.org, and become a member today.
Well, everybody, this is the PWZ podcast. This is Rick Del Santo. Now part of ProWrestlingWire.com. I've got the air guitar wizard, Troy Stevens, with me, the inaugural Tetsu Pro champion, and now, as of this past Saturday, well, not this past Saturday, it's Sunday, but the Saturday before, former PAPW United States heavyweight champion. So, Troy, how's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for joining me here today. We've got a lot to talk about, You're a guy that I wanted to interview for quite some time. I finally, actually, you know what? This is the shortest notice I've ever had on an interview. I've never just said, hey, want to do it tonight. So I thank you for that.
Hey, you said Sunday was open, I'm free too, so.
Yeah. So, I know there's some things that, talk about, I guess, how did you get interested in this wonderful world, in the wacky world, I should say, of professional wrestling?
It's kind of funny. I one day just Googled, how do you become a wrestler? I've been watching it for years and years and years, and I never thought, these guys got to go somewhere. You don't just, I guess my naive mind, you just applied at WWE or something. So I Googled it one day, and you go to school. And I was like, oh, okay, let's find the school.
Interesting. Now I understand. Did you train at Paradise Alley for a little bit as well?
Yeah, I've been there now at least 3-4 years with Roma.
Okay. Yeah,
he's a good dude. I was already trained before, but he gives me little tips here and there to kind of sharpen up the tools.
Yeah. Would you consider Roma an influence on you? And what did you watch Roma growing up at all, or I don't know?
I knew of him a lot. Yeah, I remember started watching Raw when it started, so not to give away how old I am. But I remember the first few hours. I remember Power and Glory, of course. I remember a lot, not super much because I did pay attention to the Rockers more and Demolition, Heart Foundation. But I knew who Power and Glory was, and it was definitely cool to now be on a super tight base with him, where I talk to him every week and we'll talk on the phone, cool stuff.
I always thought that he was probably one of the most underrated professional wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling, because if you watch him, that dude could really go, and he put on some of the best matches on the card. If you not just television, where it'd be a 3 or 4 minute match, and you go to a house show, he put on a really good 20-minute match with a guy like Barry Horowitz or Bob Bradley or sometimes Iron Mike Sharp. You know what I mean? He would put on the best match. And he had one of the best drop kicks in the history of professional wrestling. I'll just say that.
And he still talks about it.
Yeah. I actually just ran into him at the Cumberland Farms in Wallingford. So it's around the corner from my house. So I see him every so often. It's always at a Cumberland Farms I run into him, whether it be North Haven, Wallingford, whatever. So, so tell me about your, how did you got started? Basically, you found the school, blah, blah, blah. And, do you train with Mario as well over there? Mario's a good friend of the show.
Sometimes I pop in. He does Monday, Tuesdays. I tend to only go on Wednesdays, but a lot of times, being a veteran, I'll go and help the rookies out, see what I can do. Let them get in the ring with me. And because I remember when I was training, it was always a big deal when a veteran would come in and teach you something or show you something new. And,
right.
Just help with what I can.
Yeah. Would you, now you kind of remind me of somebody, and I don't want you to take any offense to this by any means. You did sort of mention, and you mentioned the tag team that this guy was part of in the Rockers, but you kind of remind me of Shawn Michaels. Would you consider that him being one of your influences?
100%. Only until recently was when I really started using a super kick a lot.
Yeah.
Early
I
on,
mean, your style and the way you move, that's like, when I saw that, I was like, this dude has got to be influenced by Shawn Michaels. Like, seriously, this is personal.
I probably
Not, yeah,
I probably watched the most Shawn Michaels matches out of anybody. Probably then like Bret Hart next, and then Dolph Ziggler as of recent, in the past 10
really,
years.
really.
Because obviously Dolph Ziggler has a lot of influence from Shawn Michaels in him and the way he sells and his mannerisms in the ring, which I try and copy. And I always say what makes a wrestler very good is, being able to sell and make it believable to everyone watching that move did something to you.
Hmm. You believe in the believability and
Yeah.
less is more in professional wrestling. That's something that I feel like is kind of gone a lot if you watch a lot of modern wrestling.
Something here and there. I was the same way though early on. I was doing Canadian destroyers and, not really 450s, but I was jumping off the rope, doing springboards, this and that. And I realize now
Yeah,
I get much more reactions just from tuning up the band.
yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, like, you had a really good match. I'm going to jump ahead, and then we're going to jump backwards. Okay, but I had the honor to take part in United by One as yourself, and you are obviously the inaugural Tetsu Pro champion. And you got to meet Sonny Kiss. I got the honor to be commentator for that match. I called two matches on that show, that being one. And I got to tell you, when you were tuning up the band, the crowd did start to go a little bit berserk and go crazy. I thought, and that place was packed too. There had to be like over 500 people in that place at one point.
It was a tremendous show. It was so much fun to be a part of. I'm glad CJ and Harry asked me to be a part of it, put the whole thing together, and I'm really thankful for Sonny too. I reached out and needed an opponent, so Sonny
Yeah.
answered the call.
How would you rate that call? Excuse me. I'm sorry. How would you rate that match amongst your matches? Because I mean, I honestly, I'm not the world's biggest Sonny Kiss fan. I'm very old school when it comes to professional wrestling. So much in the fact that Harry likes to ruffle my feathers a lot and take digs at me when we're recording a show. So I guess I'm referred to as the cornet in Connecticut in a way. So, so I did not expect it to be that great of a match, to be honest with you. But when I sat there and I was calling it, I got lost in the match, and I actually ended up having a really great time and thought it ended up being a really great match. So, what was your opinion about working with Sonny Kiss?
Man, I loved it. Sonny's very, very easy to work, very
Yeah.
knowledgeable. Obviously, being in AEW for so long and
Hmm.
having the tutelage of Gold Dust there and learning from him, because I think he's one of the main guys that talks to everyone before shows and helps them out and trains them, I guess.
Right.
But Sonny called a lot of the match. And like I said, just very easy. We had worked previously, so we already had an idea of what we each do and how to put it together.
Right.
And I definitely put it. I hate putting numbers behind matches because I tend to change them all the time.
Right.
And I don't want to make anyone feel bad and single anyone if I'm like, oh, it's not top 3 or top 5, but it's probably somewhere between my like top 3 and 6 favorite matches.
Right. Cool. Cool, man. That was like I said, I had a lot of fun. But circling back a little bit, that you guys now I was talking to Ryan Fraust earlier in the day. Now, how you guys ended up basically in the finals of the Tetsu uh, championship tournament. Um, and you beat him. Now, to my knowledge, is that okay? Nope, never mind. I messed up my sentence. You beat him for that title, and I had the pleasure to call him that match as well. And I thought that was that entire show, actually, that tattoo show. I called two shows for that, and that second one that I called was that Those Who Fight? Was that the name of it? Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I even invited a friend that bought the ticket, and they said that was probably one of the best indie shows that they'd have ever been to. And I had a blast calling it. Me and Nathaniel P. Carr by my side. And Frost is one of my favorites as far as a human being goes. I mean, you guys had a little rivalry going on there, and you guys really in the main event, you guys killed it. I think so. What was it like taking that title and being the inaugural champion?
Definitely a fun moment. Lots of nerves leading up and lots of curves or turns here and there because of Azrael not showing up. Just to get into the tournament, just
Yep.
waiting to like preparing for one thing and getting there and realizing you have to do something completely different um, really messes with your head a little bit. But before that, I never got into the ring with Ryan. We have known each other for probably a decade. Always cross paths, but never in the ring together.
Mhm.
Talked to him on other shows, would ride with him to shows, Um, but then standing face to face with him, I realized he is a very big man, and I always knew he was. But then until I'm standing, really, I would say eye to eye, but it was more like really eye to his pecs. Um, I had to really bring everything I had because I knew he wanted that title, and
Right.
I knew he was not going to go easy on me because we're friends. And of course, we're still friends, even though we have a little disagreement going on. But that sometimes makes the best rivalries because if you look at like going back like Triple A Shawn Michaels, the best rivalries are always because they're friends, and you grow from there.
Yep. There was a spot in the match where I think that you both went over the ropes, or maybe he went over the ropes and he landed. I thought that there was a possibility that he literally wasn't going to get up off the floor, that maybe he hurt himself a little bit too much. But he came back and ended up giving you hell for another few minutes before you ended up taking him out for that belt.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what was going on uh, because he is such a good competitor. I didn't know if he was faking it because that's what Azrael did to me originally, and I was like, I
Mhm.
can't fall for this again. So I was like, I'm not taking the count out. I'm going to get him. If hurt or not, I'm pinning him in that ring.
Right, right. Let's see. So you guys also, now that match you guys met for that title, you won that. Of course, at the same time, parallel universe. You were the Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling United States champion. Now you guys met two times for that belt, according to my recollection, and
Correct.
you won the first match, and then I believe it was last Saturday, which was a live stream on YouTube, Mania in Paradise, El Rep's final show. You lost that belt in the TLC match. So what was it like losing that belt
Uh,
to a guy that you definitely ultimately beat the previous week for a different title?
yes, and maybe I got a little ahead of myself. I've been known to be quite stubborn. He had attacked me, the show before after I beat him, shook my hand, and deliberately hit me from behind. And friends don't do that. Um,
Right.
then he comes back and puts me, through a table and everything. So I cut a promo and they say, you get heated, you get hot. And
Yeah.
I may have spoke a little too soon, challenge him to the TLC match, figuring, well, if he wants to fight like that, then we can make it fair. Until he cut his promo back to me and I realized this is what he does. He is a hardcore guy. I'm stepping into his territory and it made me the big underdog. I can probably out wrestle him, not by any means of him not being a good wrestler, but my years of experience, and I just straight up think I'm a more talented wrestler. But going into his going into his venue, his territory was not ideal. Um,
Right.
I thought I could use a few chairs, and I let the weapons get the better of me when I should have just worried about out wrestling him.
Yes.
And he got the last shot. The Bama slam through the table. I probably should have prepped a little harder, but I didn't. And then that's sometimes how the table crumbles.
I mean, you guys put on an incredible match. I, for one, is did not expect that to actually happen. I did not expect you to drop the title. Maybe got a little too much ahead of myself because you had beaten Frost two times prior, maybe because one for a different belt and you successfully defended the belt another time. So I don't know. Maybe I got ahead of myself, but no offense to you, I popped a little bit seeing that it was Ryan Frost winning a title. I mean, to my knowledge, he's been kind of he hasn't really been active in Paradise Alley that much. I know he was there years ago, once or twice. I think it was last year. He wrestled Bull Dread, excuse me, at the
Okay.
Cadillac Ranch, and that was, I guess, his solidification to coming in for further bookings from there. And I think he's a very talented. He is a talented wrestler. He just wrestles a different style than yourself.
Exactly. And everyone has their strong points. And,
Yeah,
I definitely don't want to go back into another hardcore match with him.
yeah. Uh, Speaking of that, so you've been watching, I guess, for since you were a kid, basically, as you said. You got interested, so you looked, Googled, blah blah blah, found the school. which is always the case. It's kind of it's amazing how easy it is to find a wrestling school in your local area in say 2023 as opposed to like 1983 or something to that effect. And I forgot where I was really going with this. Jesus. Sorry about that. But
Good.
what would you consider your did you watch other wrestling outside of like say the WWF when you were growing up?
Not
And
too
with that,
much.
yeah,
Only when I started training was I realized, oh, there's guys that do this, and I met them for the first time, at a school. It's like, oh, these guys do
yeah,
this on the weekend. Um, and I guess it didn't click as much because I had gone to shows before I started training. Um,
hmm
and I just thought maybe they were all just brought in with the names because I would go, probably I can't even recall if it had to be like NEW years and years before I started training because I remember one time like Roddy Piper was at a show and I was like, oh, I got to go meet Roddy Piper. And that's kind of where I started thinking to myself, like, who are these guys? They all say they're local. They're always, from this town. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, there's guys that do this that aren't on TV. Where do they come from? Are they hired? And obviously now I know there's just independent wrestlers. Once I
yeah,
started seeing that, and then I would start looking up more things and like going to from WWE, then looking up like ROH, and then being like, oh, this guy's big in ROH, and look him up, and like, oh, this is his independent work, and like, okay, I get it now, like baseball, working your way up through the leagues.
yeah, exactly. Like the how do they call it? The whatever. I don't want to say the minors because I hate calling independent
Triple A,
wrestling.
double A.
Yeah, triple A, double A. Yeah, because my opinion, and I've been a huge fan of the. I discovered independent. Well, I've always kind of been somewhat aware because once I became obsessed with wrestling, I literally searched the TV guide looking for wrestling as a kid. So I'd always find these weird wrestling shows I don't like, and then but once in the late 80s, early 90s, of just discovering what actually independent wrestling was, it became an amazing thing that it's a this whole different world compared to what you see on major TV, like mainstream television, the WWF, the WCWs, or now AEW and stuff like that. It's kind of incredible because you go to like, such as yourself, you go into like, say, a high school gym and there's a bunch of local guys, but there's something a little bit more intimate about that. You know what I mean? You get to meet and greets that are kind of, a little bit of fun, and the kids have a lot of fun. You sign couple autographs. You know what I mean? What was that? So that was basically your introduction to independent wrestling, basically, when you broke it down that way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. Where else have you? No, I spoke to someone recently. Matt Creed, Matt Classic. He said that you worked down to his AIWF a number of years ago down
That was
in
actually
the.
a really cool show because at the
Yeah.
time, they think they still do it every year. It's like the Crazy Eight tournament. Um,
hmm
Jimmy Rave was at it, and he was actually one of the guys when I started digging into Ring of Honor, and this was like probably when like CM Punk was there, big
Yeah.
rivalry with Jimmy Rave. So I was looking up his stuff, and I was like, wow, this guy's very very talented. So that was one of the first few times I went to a show like that I was on at the same level as this guy that I looked up to, and
Right.
that was really fun. Talk to him, and believe it or not, which is fine. I'm usually a very humble guy, but I actually wrestled Lee Moriarty on that show, and
Oh wow.
he was just starting out. And I looked back recently at YouTube to see if anyone had it. I found it somewhere. He might have only been a year in at that time, and it was just funny because I knew who he was, but I didn't realize who he was until obviously years later, and he got signed, and I was like, why does that name sound so familiar? Like it couldn't click at first, and then someone brought something up, and I googled something. I was like, oh, I wrestled him. So that was kind of a fun little trivia now that I have.
I believe the Crazy Eight is coming up again. I believe because I speak to Matt on a semi-regular basis. He sends me guests, a good portion of my guests, a lot of times he wants people to. If he wants people, to get a little attention, he wants his promotion obviously to get some attention, which I'm always willing to help out and get people on. And he's a great guy. So yeah, that Crazy Eight thing is coming up, and I believe there's like a 2-day festival coming up at some point. They host a 2-day. It's like an anniversary show for AIWF. So I believe myself and the House of Pain may be heading down there.
Interesting.
for
I'll
that.
have to maybe shoot him a message, see if I can get an invite to another tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth it. You're talking about Jimmy Rave. I remember watching Jimmy Rave working prior to Ring of Honor when he was working with like NWA Wildside, and it's funny because I have text messages from Jimmy Rave that I'll never delete because we were literally having. He's been a guest on this show, and it's just one of those things that it was just like he messaged me, and then literally like 2 weeks later he had passed on. So it's like one of those things. It's just like, geez, I can't really ever delete these messages. You know what I mean? It'd be kind of like messed up. But he was a decent interview. But he was a good guy. I think suffered a little
Yeah,
bit, but he was a good.
I only got to talk to him that one time. And I
Yeah.
remember that he was super cool. Like on Twitter, every now and then I would shoot him a tweet or ask him something. He'd always respond. So I always
Yeah.
like when guys do that because it shows that they take the time to help out like the other boys or something.
Right. Yeah. So where else do you work outside of the two companies that were named currently? Because those are the only ones that I really kind of I mean, a lot of the Northeast Connecticut stuff is what I keep up on. So, what about where else do you work besides that?
Right now, not too much. I was doing a lot of WFA in the first half of the year. Um, Kind of blanking out other places here and there. I'd say the last couple of years I've taken less bookings, not by any real reason other than just I'm getting older and I like to just stay close now. Um,
Yeah,
or I would travel every you get four guys jump in a car and go to Ohio, and it's just not really feasible anymore. And I don't want to sit in a car for 11 hours. So
not with me, smelly
I've
dudes
been just
for.
taking stuff recent or closer, and it gets booked up fast just because if you have PAPW running every month and then Tetsu running, and then you have I worked BST a few times.
Right.
Um, so that's like 3 weekends already. If those three are running, then you have the United by One show, which takes up a weekend, and then sometimes I just enjoy a weekend off. So
There's a rumor floating around about the next year's United by One that it may be a 2-day event. I'm not
that would
exactly
be
100% certain on that, but you never know. So that's the
I'd
rumor.
be down for that. Work both days.
Yeah, yeah. It was I gotta tell you, it was a blast, and I love the Connecticut wrestling. It's actually the Northeast, and I do work in Massachusetts as well, but Connecticut is just it's like a hotbed right now for professional wrestling. We have like 5 or 6 different companies here, and they're just each one brings their own brand and brings their own style, I guess you can say, and there's a lot of interchangeable parts between the 5 or 6 promotions, and it's a really fun thing that's going on here in Connecticut right now.
Yeah, I feel I may be a little cranky vet about some things. I feel like almost there's too much going on in Connecticut. I'm worried about it diluting the areas, and then I don't
Yeah,
want people to get turned off to certain promotions. I don't want anyone to fail by any
right.
means, but I just don't want too many people running at the same times, and then families, understandably, not being able to buy tickets every weekend of the month because they go to one and they don't want to go to another, and then they have to choose, or if you run the same date, you make the fans choose, and it's always bad in the long run.
I mean, it's not. I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it's not just like the area having much wrestling. It's wrestling as a whole. Like there's literally wrestling 7 days a week on between internet, television, all that stuff. Like every major company is hosting the show. You can watch any. So it's like there's a lot of things that are just going on right now in professional wrestling. It's probably really just a big boom. It's a great big boom, but you know, there's just so much of it. You got to pick and choose like what it based on what you like really right now.
Yeah, it's true. And like I said, even I have trouble getting some friends to come because they kind of get tired of me asking. I'll be like, "Hey, do you want to come to Tetsu? Hey, do you want to come to United by One? Hey, do you want to come to PAPW?" They're running 3 weeks in a row, and I'm asking them for $25 a pop every week. They,
Yeah,
they just eventually are like, "Listen, we can't go to every single show." There are some that do, and I appreciate those ones. But I get if I'm just asking one person, and if you had a family and a couple kids, and it's not WWE, but still
but
$20 a person to get in, $60 to get into a show. Ask them to do that 2-3 times a month. It adds up.
it adds up. Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, they're gonna have a fun time. Basically, that's what I mean, I know it's expensive to if you're doing that. So yeah, it's I guess the delusion. And there's a lot of times where a lot of these companies run on the same exact night as well. Say there's a Saturday, there's like 4 or 5 shows in state. That's always something to me that's a turn off. You know what I mean?
It's a major pet peeve, and I've heard so many stories and talk to different promoters about why certain people do it, and hopefully I don't say anything too much or blow any or throw anyone under the bus. But it's always like, oh, that person's running, so I'm gonna run mentality, and I can't stand that. Um,
Yeah.
I've told some people in Tetsu sometimes, like, if I have a show or someone else, I was like, dude, don't even run. Don't even try. And it's not because I don't think we could draw or outdraw or anything like that. Like, don't make any fans choose. Just run a
Yeah.
different day if you can, and let them have the opportunity to at least come to both. Because I never want to put any fan to like, hey, pick him or me, and that's the way it has to be. It's just like I said, it's a pet peeve. It's a turn off. Makes me sick. I don't like it.
One of the things that drives me crazy is I'm sure you know the one bigger company out of the area or the biggest company out of the area that they'll see that there's probably 2 shows running on a Saturday. And so they'll just run a show, come in, say, hey, we're running a show and stack up the show. And then there's less people at say either Paradise Alley or Coliseum, which is, I do a lot of work for them. There's just ends up being, oh look, there's 60 people at this show. 300 are at another show, or maybe even 1,000, depending on what building they're running. That's the
Exactly.
thing that drives me crazy is people that come in and try to take your take your fans altogether.
I mean, if as long as you've been around and I've been along, we all know wrestling's never going to change.
No, no, no. But I'm always
We can
going to be a
complain all
fan.
we want, but it's going to keep happening. So you just got to
I've been
roll with it.
watching. I've been watching wrestling for close to 40 years, if not, I'm going to be 49. So I've been watching it close, over 40 years. I just have, it's not something that's going to go away. I may stop for like a year, maybe, but I'll always come back. That's been that way so many times in life. But it's, in a sense, myself being involved in the industry, for the last 5 or so years, I've seen there's a lot of BS that happens, but you just got to turn the other cheek. That's it. I try not to have heat with anybody. I try to be friendly, literally, with every single person. It's very few. You know who you are. So, I just try to have fun.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way now. Definitely a hothead years ago. Definitely burned bridges, hardcore. Definitely told people my opinion certain times, but I also feel like sometimes you have to be, or you have to be that guy. If someone doesn't stand up, sometimes you just have to. And
Right.
sometimes I ate shit, sometimes I didn't, but at least either the promoter knew where I was coming from, and I said my piece. And if we didn't see eye to eye, then that's fine. But I always at
Right.
least feel like I had dignity for myself to at least stand up for something.
Yeah, you got to stand up for what you believe. Is there anything that you have coming up that you want to push out there? To let people know.
There's the big
January
things.
6th,
January 6th, yeah. They just announced me versus Lucas Chase for the Tetsu
Yep.
title, which is I'm gonna have to put in some work for that one. I've wrestled
I,
Lucas before. He's super, super good, but he is
he is,
amazingly intense.
yes, he is, and Matt DeCourt always makes fun of me because I'm always a guy that just puts over Chase and absolutely become like this huge fan because, like you said, he's intense. And there's a lot of times he'll go out there and he'll just pick his opponents apart and he'll put on literally the best match of the show. That's just my personal opinion. But
Oh, 100%. Him and Fuego were bonkers,
they killed.
and
Oh, they killed him. Yeah.
I watched it just mind blown. And then which is funny, I'm telling Xander, I'm like, wow, this match is so great. He's like, yeah, well, get ready because you're gonna wrestle him next. And I was like, oh boy, I better start hitting the gym and hitting the training ring real hard because as good as and big as Ryan is, Lucas is a big dude too. He hits really hard, and we're gonna definitely have fun. I mean, it's gonna be a great match, and it's gonna really. I'd love to say I'd go in and just leave with the title, but it's not gonna be that easy. There's definitely gonna be back and forth, and someone's gonna have to walk out of there. We're gonna see. Hopefully, I'm the better man, but I don't want to sound too unconfident either. But Lucas is very good.
No, I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. I'm really looking forward to that one. What else do you have coming up? I think there's a Paradise Alley show in January
They
coming up. I
announced,
don't know.
yes,
Yeah.
January 20th. As far as I know, is the date right now. I don't think it's going to change.
Okay.
And I haven't talked. Actually, this is like breaking news with you right now. Is I'm going to probably invoke my rematch clause with Ryan.
Okay.
And say I hope it's granted. And I don't think he would not show up. So I'm pretty sure he'd be more than willing to go again. And I hope I can win that belt back.
I mean, you got to be more prepared. If it's just a straight match, then
Yes.
you probably have a really good chance if you can just out wrestle him. If it's some sort of gimmick match, you got to be careful
Yeah,
with Ryan.
exactly. Well, hopefully management just gives me a regular match and we don't need to go too crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything else that's coming up, or is that it for now?
That's it right now. I chose to take most of December off. Like I said, I did a lot leading up through September, October, November, and just wanted a few weeks to myself. And then with Christmas season and all that, I know it kind of gets a lull for wrestling anyway because
Right.
less places run. Families are buying gifts and spending money on the holidays. And I said, you know what?
Right.
If I got big stuff coming up in January, why just take December off, relax, heal up a little bit, which I always need, and just get ready for the new year.
Well, why don't you tell everybody where you could be found on the social media?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Um, uh, Instagram TS Factor Troy Stevens or the Troy Stevens on Twitter.
Troy, I want to thank you for coming on. We're going to have to do this again sometime. But if you win that United States title back, let's make a date for the following day for you to come back.
Absolutely, I would love to be on here again. I had a blast tonight.